All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, welcome to this session. Another session on YALSIA talk on basically we're talking about all the technology issues. We've gone through a few sessions. In fact, this is the 7th episode. Here with me tonight we have Jason Lee from Moser. Going to touch on Sketchup. Right. I know that Sketchup are used by many smaller practices. However, it is, although people say that it is not a BIM software, but however, there are many useful works Sketchup can do. And tonight, I think Jason will be talking more about how useful Sketchup can be, and as well as we will be dealing into some of this AI, right? In fact, AI is the buzzword now. So he will show you, in fact, how AI can be integrated into SketchUp. And hopefully we can, through the Q&A session, right, we can discover more. All right, so without further ado, Jason, I'd like to hand over to you.
Thanks, William, for the introduction. So I'm just gonna share my screen, hopefully, so that everyone can see it. Okay, so I hope that everyone can see my screen right now. Okay, so let me just probably starting with the first page. So a little bit introduction about myself and Moser Associates. That Moser is an architectural practice that founded in Hong Kong, China, originally back in 1981. And our founders, Ms. Maura Moser, that she's pretty well established architects. She was born in California in US, but she started a business with her husband and a bunch of associates in Hong Kong. So I'm an international professional designer from IIDA, and currently as the associate director for a global group within Moser called Design Integration Simulation and Technologies. Meanwhile, I'm a lead AP IDC and operation and maintenance, well AP race at AP. Also, I got my BCA Grima AP as well during the COVID. Also, I'm a IWBI Will faculty, a Trimble visiting professional specialized in VDC, virtual design and construction, and also BIM, Building Information Modeling. And I helped Trimble to found a few authorized training center in China as well. So I'm the advisor for that. So let's just get started. And I would love to say the first thing is finally the artificial general intelligence took everyone's attention. So nobody's talking about BIM anymore. So this session is more, I hope it's not too much for you guys as it involves a little bit more on coding as well. So we will have a brief, kind of like a very light touch on on how the Ruby API of SketchUp will be. We'll be doing like getting the inputting some of the informations like metadata into the model and how to get it out. So but before we start, I need everyone to wipe your brains clear. Let's just get started first. In the smallest scale, what's the BIM thing in a traditional way? So to answer that question, I have this model look like a chair, right? So we classify it as a furniture. And on the furniture, it's a chair. And it's a chair and it has brand information like Herman Miller is aluminum group chair. And then we further define what kind of type of like mid back or high back or low back, right? So let's say it's a mid back. And what's going to be the finishes for the sits? And also how's the leg finishes like black lacquer? And also what type of like casters that we have. So in generally that all this information, if it's being attached to a virtual model in whatever software, it's not really certified as a BIM, but it's a model with more than enough information, right, for different traits to use. So in reality, if we're talking about the BIM models, that the furniture itself is a type of classification, and chair is a type under classifications of IFC furniture, right? And we have manufacturer information, exact product name, and also we have all this like meat bags or black leathers or black lacquer chairs. It's all customized types or customized property sets or informations, right? So it's simply a model that append information that we inputted according to a BEP, which is referring to a beam execution plan. So everyone is getting aligned. Like if you're an MEP modeler, that you're inputting this much of information onto that field, particular attributes, right? If let's say we deal with this chair, so this is how much information I need to put, right? So we have a beam execution plan to coordinate different trades and different professional disciplines, right? So is this something really new? To me, it's not. Personally, I've been working with this BIM stuff right from the, well, very beginning, I could say, even though I know that I'm Chinese, I look pretty young. So it has been years and years going on and on. So to me, it's not really something that is actually new. All right. So we did that. We tried to do that even back in the AutoCAD stage, right? So it's like, classification, we use layers, and then we have a sub-layer, or probably underscore, then have another name. And we have the block in AutoCAD. Nowadays it's being called like instances in Revit, components in SketchUp, whatever fancy name it is. But in the end, it's just, well, a block, right? And it has a definition, which have a prefix, right? Then we have the block definition literally. And I believe that these kind of like capitalized characters that maybe is ring a bell in your brains right now, because if we just simply assemble them into I_fur and CHR, basically it's a interior furniture chair, you know, that kind of stuff. And we have parameter like HM, AL, group chair, that kind of definition, right? So we try to do that even back in the AutoCAD drafting age, right? So in SketchUp, I'm going to talking about SketchUp, okay? So let's just look at the customized types and the customized attributes, okay? So in SketchUp natively, if you're doing a SketchUp Pro, then you will have this dynamic components built-in feature, which allows you to customize different attributes. They call it attributes. So right here, you just need to right click the dynamic components and open up this component attributes. Then you can, as you can see right here down below, or enter a custom name, okay? So it has a lot of like preset attributes fields like lengths or rotations or behaviors or even positions about coordinates XYZ, right? Also the component infos like name, summary, description, or even item codes, right? So all these things is actually right inside SketchUp. And by the way, this is a functionality that has been lying in SketchUp for, well, I could say back in like SketchUp 8. So it's even before SketchUp was being procured or being bought over by Trimble. So this thing has always been there, okay? Even before the BIM has been, well, popular in a certain sense. So the boring part started here. Okay, so to access that via Ruby, it's quite straightforward. And it's, as you can see that all these codes right here is pretty, how can I say, it's pretty consistent in a certain sense. So it uses the SketchUp Ruby API by definition, set attributes, followed by the format of dictionary, which is you can treat it as a dictionary, then it has a lot of attributes down there. Okay, and then you have different attributes, you have different values. For programmers, whoever is attending this, basically dictionary, keys, and values. Okay, so for instance, here I define the chair back type as meat back, which we just now see right here. So cell means that it's a SEL basically means it's a selection. So you can locate in Ruby while you based on the selected object inside SketchUp. So I grab its definition and then I set the attributes with dynamic attributes, the attributes name literally like chair back type. Then I assign the value of meat back, right? So the same works for the chair back for the black leathers, lacquer leg, or half wall casters. So I have a bigger one right here. So you're encouraged to try this later, okay, in your SketchUp if you're using it. So it has an attribute name, And then you just put in the value and you use this line just to literally use Ruby to inject that information onto that particular model. Okay, so that's the customized things. And let's coming back. For classifications, type, manufacturers, and model name, all this kind of stuff, right? You can choose to use the customized attributes, or maybe not, because there are better ways, more direct. For instance, currently the IFC, well, so a little bit background, I believe you guys know that. So IFC is literally the representation of a BIM object, right? So you need to adapt to a wider, bigger, more streamlined world of IFC, industrial foundation classifications, right? So the classes, the classifications is been supported since SketchUp 2015. That's many years, like 8 years ago. So you can literally load it in any of the schema in IFC. Now supports up to IFC 4, I believe. You can choose under this entity info, which is a type. So you can define that as a furniture or chair. And then you can use a tab, basically a layer, to classify, to further classify that as a chair. And thereafter, as you can see right here, every SketchUp component that you have been created, it does have we call it SU, the SketchUp instance set. So basically it's the advanced attributes, right? So you can have the owner, which is whoever is supplying this, right? And also you can have the definition, which is literally the model name and the product model name, right? So here is another better way to make all this information more clear inside SketchUp. They can see, because the entity info, whenever you're editing, is always open there, right? Rather than the dynamic components. But however, these accesses are pretty much fancier than the just now that's super streamlined, super straightforward, that definition dot set attributes, right? Because each of these individual fields, they have a Ruby API command that can get an access. So access to layer, which is referring to the tag, right? It will assign the layer for it. And on the other hand, the definition name can be changed by set the definition dot name, this functionality. Manufacturer, it can be accessed by the set attributes. Go to the SU instance set owner, and you will be able to access that. And also for IFC, so you can add the classification as well. Okay, I'm telling you guys all of this, the so-called native and native way. As in native, the first native without bracket means that you can literally find a UI, a user interface to fill it in. The bracket one is basically accessed via backend Ruby, but it does the same thing. It does the same thing. The only benefit that you're using Ruby is because that you can iterate. You can do the common task faster. I'm just giving you another example about getting certain sizing. Well, I could say that it's boundary size. This is especially useful for those kind of like MEP elements, especially when we're doing clash detections. We don't really bother like if it's a elbow or something, but we need to understand how much space that this components is literally occupying in the space, right? So the size of the boundary is pretty important for us. As you can see right here, when you're modeling SketchUp or you grab any of the models that inside SketchUp from the 3D warehouse, with the native component attributes, if you happen to select the position and size, you will see the length X, length Y, and length Z, right? So this number, for instance, that I'm highlighting now is the length X. It's basically the width of the chair itself. So it's 63 centimeters, right? So this thing can also be accessed. Just now we use set attributes. Now we can use get attributes to get back the value. That's how we extract the information from a model using Ruby. So once you get that, you will realize that here in the dynamic components and in the real size of SketchUp, it will be exactly 636 millimeters. Okay, and accessing to Ruby is exactly the same. Okay, so what I want to inspire you guys or throw in some food for thoughts is basically if you're doing multiple things or multiple different things to assign the metadata with a constant attribute structure, as in the dictionary, then you have a lot of attributes, right? For each trace or each type of objects. maybe it's structural elements, maybe it's like facade, maybe it's glass, whatever it is. Okay, based on the classifications, you can assign that pretty easily via Ruby. So all you need to do is just record all those kind of values, like right here that I'm doing a hash. Basically, one key matches with one value. That's just how I've talked about. So chair back type is meat back. Chair finishes type is black leather, right? So we still remember that. I hope you guys do so. And thereafter, we can select, we can bring all the same definition of this chair in whichever level of context inside SketchUp into an array. So this array storing all these kind of like instances of chairs. So maybe we have 50 different chairs and be named differently, right? But however, you can iterate on each of these chairs to be repeatedly assigning the same metadata. And this thing, trust me, if you go and try it, you dig a little bit, do a little bit of search online, and if you manage to do so, you realize how fast it is. Okay, and to further expand this, I just want to mention, but it's not written down on the slides because I never thought about that. If you have a CSV, a spreadsheet that you're editing in an Excel, right? Ruby has native extensions on and supports on CSV, basically the comma separated value. You can understand as a spreadsheet. So it does have the capability to read that spreadsheet and to iterate, also to batch assign everything mentioned in that Excel to exactly the models or the componentries inside SketchUp in one shot. Okay, I've done that. I'm just letting you guys know. And it's it's a pretty beloved tool that internally actually. So, and I know that keep talking about the coding is pretty tedious. So let's just have another look. So if you guys have ever tried this before, I'm not so sure, but this is native. So inside SketchUp, under the file, the last thing in a drop-down menu is called general report. So basically, we've assigned a lot of these kind of like different dynamic attributes or definitions or whatsoever, right? You can customize different kind of like format where it can generate different kinds of reports. This, I could say, which based on my own experience for the projects worldwide, it can serve as a fundamental of the 5D, the quantifications from model. It's not really a magic that you go through like Revit and Navis where they're trying to get things right, but in SketchUp, it has all these kind of things. As you can see right here, just now we have this length X, length Y, length Z. So I just choose the quantity and length X and group by definition names. And here's what I got. So just now we have this Vitra physics conference, has 6 numbers in the model in total. And the length X is 636 millimeters. If that number rings a bell. Just now in this example, this thing is consistent throughout the whole environment of SketchUp. So in reality, if you want to generate something like a spreadsheet, whatever it is, material schedule or quantification schedule, QS takeoff, quantity takeoff, you might guess you can do it. You actually can do it. All right. I'm just letting you guys know. All right. And this is the native way to use the general report. As just now I mentioned, you can use CSV in Ruby as well to import and export anything you want from the SketchUp model. You can assign it in a batch. You can export it back as a batch as well. Okay. So that's in general about touching on the 3D part, which 3D model, easy SketchUp. We all love using SketchUp for designing, right? But we rarely people is really using SketchUp to do like BIM purposes, 4D, 5D, right? However, let's just back to the 2Ds because that's why Revit and ArchiCAD is taking the market because we can really get rid of the documentation's formalities, right? So this is one of the recent projects that is in Singapore. It's pretty small, I have to say. But the bigger ones, I don't think the bigger ones putting here it's making a better effect because that's not really easy for you guys to see though. So it's a tiny project in Singapore right now, and it's yet to be built. It will be built soon. So this plan is actually generated from this SketchUp. So before this session, actually, William and I had a chat. So he actually reminds me like I should probably introduce it more about like how to do the documentations in 2D. But in Moser that we are 3D prioritized, so the 2D documentation is not really on, like on our priority list right now, even in the daily practices, because the 3D drawing sometimes is making a better effects right now. So in the meanwhile, because I modeled the reflected ceiling panels, as in all the ceiling designs and everything else, lighting locations is exactly precise that I wanted. So that's the RCP that we generated. And whenever you install SketchUp, you will always get this piece of software named Layout. Just worth to try it, because Layout is the tool, is the 2D paper space that I get all these drawings from SketchUp. Okay, so as you can see right here, I remember back in probably 5 or 6 years, there was a hype worldwide saying that, from 3D to making 2D representations or drawings is more accurate, which I agree. I do agree. But what's the cheapest or most cost-effective way to do so? Based on my own experience, SketchUp and Layout. And maybe many of you will talk about like SketchUp's capacity issues, like it can support like 1 GB file. We actually worked with Trimble back in the, well, right after the COVID happened. So the first task that we did during that silent year, because all the events and trips were all canceled, everyone was kind of stunned. So we have rewrite the SKP format to improve its efficiency and compression. So actually, if you save a file before the 2021 version of SketchUp, let's say it's 1 GB, if you save that in the later version, you will realize the same file is about 1/4 of the size. So that's how great it is, actually. Okay, so anyway, and is there any other ways that you can directly send your SketchUp model to Layout using the Ruby API and to predefine things like title blocks, the scale of the drawings, what kind of style you want, or even the line weights, right? What kind of layer should be displayed, what kind of like hidden geometries you want to hide, right? So all these things, I don't want to get too deep on this session because it's not really meant for like public consumers. It's just too technical. I hope I'm not being too technical right now. So everyone uses ChatGPT nowadays, and it's very good in basic programming, I could say. So if you give a good prompt, as in probably you can start with like you're just telling ChatGPT you're now a experienced SketchUp Ruby developer. You are very familiar with the Ruby API of SketchUp. So write me something like this. So here I just put up the prompt, and I can tell you that this thing is the first step where to automatically turn your SketchUp model, the current view, in perspective to the top plan. Okay, and this thing is exactly right. You can try on your free ChatGPT account or Plus account. Get this, copy into the Ruby console, and you will get it. You will realize that your SketchUp view is being tuned to the top view, and it's parallel projection. Okay, so nowadays you can simply ask to get a draft answer, and you can try to debug just within SketchUp. Okay, so that's exactly how you can do it. And this brings another important point I want to, because this session is not really about like telling you guys how exactly to do it, but it's more, I want to make it more inspirational, because you guys are, we're all doing in this AEC industry. I just want to share all this fascinating stuff with you guys. So you don't have to be a decent programmer. You don't even need to learn like every bit of this kind of programming languages like the grammar, so on and so forth. But you can simply ask. And while you keep asking, keep evolving, keep debugging, and fine-tune the stuff, you will get answered directly. All right. So it's no longer, there used to be a very huge obstacle between designers, engineers, architects, and programming. Okay, so I mean, this technology world has made a good tool of visual programming, like in Unreal Engine, blueprints, or even Grasshopper with Rhino, just to help us to do visual programming because we are visual animals. But visual programming also has limitations that it's not really, that detailed or controllable comparing to the real programming, means literally typing the codes. So you can simply use GPT to ask multiple questions to get the answers. And also you can ask it to add all the explanations on every single line of code to help you to understand, to build the consciousness. That will facilitate the process and boost the efficiency of becoming, understanding about the codes. Okay, so in generally, this is exactly what I do. Okay, I know how to write codes, but sometimes the ChatGPT or any of these kind of AGI models that it actually broaden your horizon, that to see things from different angles, I could say. So this is something that worth to try. I would love to just let you guys know that I'm personally using it and I feel it's great. And I can imagine, because I've been through a very tough journey in learning programming, to be frank, especially on Ruby. It's relatively small and beautiful, but old, old school. So that's a huge, time saver for you. And also I want to talk about the future is, I want to talk about our group within Moser. So we found this group before COVID, and during the COVID days that a lot of people is remotely working, and there's a lot of things that we cannot foresee, to be frank. So we came up with like a gigantic integration of all these elements, that design is not just about design, because design is based on certain simulation results, as in, let's say, the daylights, right? And also you have to do something like computational fluid dynamics, CFD, to prove that if your HVAC, the air supply and air return is effective locations, right? And also fused with the technologies like, well, the old stuff like VR, and also right from the beginning, I think is very stupid about metaverse, because there is no physical hardware can support that actually. So user experience, I know it won't be that great. And also the most important thing that notice that we're looking into is about sustainability and wellness. Sustainability is about saving energies, right? It's about saving resources, is creating better environment, and also wellness is taking care about like personal health, workplace health, right? And also about universal design, the equity between human beings, right? So all these things has to be integrated. That's why we founded the DIST group, our design integration simulation and technology group. And we've successfully grown from, like, initially we have 3 people. Now we have nearly 30. And we're continuously expanding. And a lot of people inside Moser is engaging us for new proposals because we're doing a lot of work. And it's fascinating on integration. And I'm talking about a wider spectrum of integration. It's not just about, I'm a designer, I'm an architect, I just care about my things. I want others to follow me. No, it's not like that. It's about equally, we communicate, we share, and we work together. And all this kind of like AI tools, SketchUp, well, that's one of the major reasons why we choose SketchUp. That's the primary modeling software, because it does the BIM stuff, all right? And it's able to be converted into IFC. So that satisfies the technical requirement. But however, SketchUp is way much more easier to use. So it's been well-versed with multiple professional disciplines here in Moser. Engineers, they know SketchUp. Designers, they know SketchUp. Architects use SketchUp anyway, right? So it's about everyone has a visual platform to collaborate. So I think that's how we actually getting things done nowadays anyway. Just love to share with you guys. So that's the end of the session. Actually, I didn't prepare that much because I feel coding probably is one of the quite harsh things that to talk about. So hope that this, well, I've forwarded this PDF to William and Wei. So probably if you guys are interested, you can grab and have a look again, because the coding thing probably wants to copy and paste and try. Any questions?
Okay, great. Jason, thanks for the sharing. For some of you who are not so familiar, I'd just like to elaborate a bit. What Jason talked about Ruby. Ruby is actually a so-called programming language used especially for SketchUp. Right. Well, Jason has shown us that initially he goes a bit into technical stuff using Ruby scripts in order to so-called populate some of these properties. However, later on you can find that he actually used ChatGPT and actually prompt ChatGPT to generate the script itself. So that's why this great thing about AI. In fact, now you don't need to know a lot about programming. You can actually use the natural language to tell the so-called software, the AI software, to direct another software to come up with the scripts. In fact, this has been used quite extensively. In fact, everybody is trying to do that now. Jason also mentioned Grasshopper. In fact, Grasshopper, there's a direct load in. You can actually use Grasshopper on SketchUp as well. So imagine if you can actually use ChatGPT to actually tell Grasshopper to generate what you require, right? So actually with this, open up a lot of possibilities for designers who can now start to explore and actually generate ideas, right? Okay, so with that, maybe, okay, most of you already we are permitted in terms of you can unmute and start to ask questions. So if any of you got any questions, feel free to unmute your mic and start asking, because I think we're here to share and learn from one another, right? So can anybody start off? You see some familiar faces here. Colin, Wenwei. Yeah, maybe you feel free to just ask some question. Anyone? Good. I see Thomas, you've raised your hand. You can just unmute and start to ask a question. Thomas, you? No, it's not.
Hi, yes, I'm Wenwei. Thank you, Jason.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. So it's actually very interesting to understand that ChatGPT is being used to manipulate the data. So my question would be for the sustainability component, like the green mark. So how do you actually use ChatGPT to achieve your goals? Maybe you can explain a bit, give some hint. Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye. Over.
Thanks. So just to answer that question, if let's say we're talking about like sustainability standard queries, like how does, let's say for instance, real example, like in BCA Green Mark, we have like Gold Plus and Platinum that requires different lighting power density calculations and requirements, right? So in generally that in ChatGPT, if you are a Plus account user, then you can enable the web browsing methods so that you can directly ask the questions. But however, that within Moser, we're developing ourselves that we tune a particular GPT for this purpose so that we can fit in any of the standards to answer any of the questions. That's what recent days that we're working on right now. Yeah. So it's really like a treasure box that once you open it up, it will give you a lot of answers. And it's truly a way more powerful search engine than never. Okay. So I really wish that everyone to try it.
Okay, I think Jason is talking about prompt engineering. This is a new field whereby you actually teach the AI. As you ask question, the AI actually learns about the subject. And eventually, when you ask enough questions, the AI will actually get better and give you better answers. Right? That in principle, what the AI can do. Actually, in the market right now, there are many, not just, of course, ChatGPT seems to be the lead, but there are actually many softwares or AI that are actually doing the same thing. Okay, I don't see any question in the Q&A, but maybe I can, yes, I actually discussed this with one of my other architects, and he was saying that this, I wouldn't say criticism, but he's saying that actually SketchUp is not a BIM software, right? As you know, the BIM requirements are such that people have to get the so-called the actual BIM software to perform all the tasks. But Jason, in your opinion, is it true, or can we actually use SketchUp just as what we need for BIM?
Okay, William, probably, well, I mean, William knows me better, I mean, for years. So it's pretty a good question, I could say, as in, what's the definition of a BIM software? That's the first reverse question I will firstly ask, because I've heard this statement for years, to be frank, and no one ever gives me an answer. It's like sometimes the answer probably is like, it does similar things like Revit, and or something like, it's similar. It should be similar like BIM 360, right? So all this answer, I mean, the real definition of a BIM software is the software that is compatible working with IFC, the schemas, IFC 3, IFC 4, right? So literally, there is a software certifications on BIM, so-called the BIM software, but I want you guys to look into it, just to key in or ask ChatGPT about, who is Building Smart Institute and what exactly is IFC. And also, you probably can ask another question is about what type of BIM softwares is being listed according to the BSI, the Building Smart Institute. And you will realize that Revit is a model authoring tool. BIM 360, Trimble Connect, Bentley, EchoSim, they're data servers, right? So under the so-called BIM software, there is a lot of different types of software. So all of them plus together become an ecosystem. And I'm not saying that, SketchUp is a BIM software, but number one, it's compatible with, it has the capability to loading any of the schemas. As before this session, I was talking with William. If IFCSG has a XSD or XML raw data, raw data structure that we can put into SketchUp immediately, right? So it does compatible. Number two, as a model authoring BIM software, the requirement is you're able to do modeling, and you're able to attach informations. You're able to load the schema. You're able to input the data onto the right attributes. The SketchUp can do that. Just now, my session, I believe I explained that. So from the existing user interface, right? Or from Ruby. Either way, you can get access to it. So that's the answer I could give. I could say, because BIM software, well, I've been doing many projects worldwide, and to be frank, in the most strict region, which is United States, they require us to have like BIM submissions, right? We did multiple times that using SketchUp, export IFC, send it to the authority, and we get passed. That's how simple it is. And we never bother to customize families. We just don't do that. We're just using some simple Ruby codes, because we're pretty static about the classification structure, right? So a structure elements is structure elements. Interior of furniture is IFC furniture. If it's a door, it's an IFC door. If it's a wall, it's an IFC wall. It all has standardized parameters. You can quickly select them, or even you don't have to select them. Nowadays we have the AI to do, well, with TensorFlow, probably we can do the visual recognition. But in the old days, what we do is basically we group them into a batch, then just run the script, and everything goes in and export from SketchUp as IFC, get a submission, everything is perfect, and nobody come back and say, this is not how can I say, this is not a BIM software made things. Nobody care about that. The reality is, whatever submission we have to go back to the origin point why we're using the BIM models, because it's not just a visual model. It has geometries. It has been vectorized. It has lengths. It has weights. It has 3D representations plus all the informations that we need. The informations with all these geometries, these are the true value of BIM. So why have to be stick to one format or one software? Whichever we feel is, I mean, whichever you feel is easier to do, easier to deal with, then you can choose anything, right?
Okay, great. I think in a way you have explained that, okay, since you talk about IFC, I mean, we're talking about the geometry part is easy, right? Any objects we can read off the geometry, whereas IFC will actually so-called input the non-geometrical attributes to the object, and whereby depending on which part of the project phase, you can make use of the software to extract these attributes, and then you can actually do counting, do grouping, etc. As you mentioned just now. So since you're mentioning IFC, actually the plan for Singapore to roll out the Connect X, and one of the major component will be that we're going to have an auto checker. And in fact, all submission will now require to be in IFC format. So whichever BIM software you're using, you have to export to IFC based on so-called a local annex system called the IFC SG, because this has got implication in terms of the code checking as well. As you know, there are, because of the code, right, there are certain naming convention that we require the IFC model to be named, thereby the code checker can actually select them and do the necessary checking. So, of course, we need to do some development, right? And then, so, but the great thing about this is that, as you've demonstrated, SketchUp can actually export IFC, and if that can be done, actually the practitioners here can actually continue to use SketchUp to be involved in the Connect X. But what do you think are some of the requirements to really to be need to do to SketchUp in order for that to happen?
Actually, as I mentioned just now, the first thing that we will need is actually to have the IFCSG schema, which based on the BSI technical requirements is going to be a XSD or XML format. So it's basically a code you guys can understand as a code that has like, let's say the chair, then what kind of chair it is. So it has all the standardized attributes for the model authoring software to display that field so that you can fill or choose from the drop-down menu. And there are, yes, definitely, as William mentioned, naming conventions. So how far it is? Number one, we have the schema loaded into SketchUp, customized IFC schema. So it has the basic interface that we can manually input in stuff, right? But on the other hand, there's loads of automations that can be done. For instance, naming conventions check. So we can explore all the definitions or instances. I mean, all these are strings in computer languages, string, basically text, okay? So these texts can be reformatted in whatever way that we want. For instance, I don't want all the space in between different words. I want these words to be first character to be capitalized. These are all programming. So you can do that simply via Ruby or C or any of the programming language that has that kind of function. So naming conventions can be resolved as well. And also like grouping, if you want a grouping by level or grouping by space, it's also available because you have the coordinates, right? So you can set a certain limits between this, let's say the left bottom corner to the right top corner. So within this space or whatever space that you selected to be grouped as what kind of functionality of the IFC space can be. So it's just, I could say that it's, if you really do that, then you will realize that, you know, the BIM literally has a more cost-effective way. But you have to go through a journey just like we have been through in the past years that, you know, you need to know a lot of like coding and you need to understand, you need to really understand what BIM is and how's the schema is being structured in a certain sense to streamline the communications. So I could say that it's not far because we've done that. And it didn't cost us years. Okay, so actually the development literally on the coding and we write extensions within SketchUp, just a few buttons. That won't take a month, but it takes us years to understand the whole structure. Then we know this is going to be the simplest user experience for our designers. Just simply click, choose, import, and validate, put it back. So that's the thing. It's about, I could say that the magic is happening in the so-called product manager size. It's not really about BIM manager, but it's more like you're thinking it as a functionality tool. So it's a product. And the designers, architects, the users of SketchUp, they're your clients, right? So how are you gonna create a better UI and a UX for your clients? Then you can establish that tool, okay? But every company is different. I believe that, you gotta find your own style anyway.
Yeah, also the workflow may be slightly different as well, because we're talking about you need to have a few steps, not that straightforward. I guess it's a matter of finding the right people with the right answer. We should be able to develop something. Yeah, maybe are there anyone who wish to ask any questions here?
Asking in the saying that if the core and shell and MEP consultant provided their objects, SketchUp used by architects and designers will be able to categorize them according to their disciplines for coordination, collaboration, and change management. The answer is yes, because if they are playing within everyone is playing under, you can imagine whatever software they're using, Revit or ArchiCAD or whatever software, or maybe it's not even in the list of the software implementation list. The 300 or 500 plus softwares listed on the Building Smart Institute, as long as they are IFC objects and they have been loaded with the same schema, same version of the schema, maybe IFC SG or IFC4, right? Or IFC 2x3, and they've been carefully inputted everything under the right attributes, the right field, then you can get an exchange. With Ruby, IFC SG or Greenma, requirements could be added, extracted, and updated to yes, because that's basically referring from XSD or JSON file to be interpreted via Ruby into SketchUp. Yes, it's just about how we craft extensions, like how many menus or right clicks or left clicks on the mouse or a particular key that we're gonna assign for certain functions. Yes. And IFC SG probably is going to be the most straightforward thing, actually.
Okay, you also mentioned just now about SketchUp being a visualization tool. Is there a way whereby we can even, I'm not sure whether we'll improve it or not, so we want to integrate this with either DALL-E 2 or Midjourney with ChatGPT?
So we have explored pretty much since last year. So on the various AI tools, Midjourney, DALL-E, Stable Diffusion, and in my personal opinion, not from the perspective of Moser, just my personal opinion, share with you guys that Midjourney and DALL-E, well, DALL-E is not even really published. Fully being public anyway. So let's just talk about Midjourney. Midjourney is good for, I could say, 3 purposes. I'm not gonna list them all, but it's a decent tool that for people who wants to do text to images, and to find some new inspiration. So looking our ideation from another angle, I could say, it really gives a lot of extra imaginations that may potentially be inspired. And to speaking about the practices, where we're designing, we're modeling in a virtual environment. Stable Diffusion with ControlNet and LoRa training is the way to go for now, because I don't know whether DALL-E is going to be changing or Midjourney is going to be upgrading. And interesting enough that Midjourney now has this describe command, so you can upload an image and reverse get prompts. And these prompts can be used in ChatGPT Plus account with that extension name photorealistic to be enabled. So if you back and forth, you fit in the prompt, you will get better and better things. So that's really kind of like interesting stuff is going on. But speaking of the reality, don't imagine current batch of AI tools can replace the renderings that we're doing, because we require precise control on lighting effects, many things, many fine details, because rendering is still kind of like more towards artistic stuff, right? So for AI generated images, even Stable Diffusion with ControlNet, with LoRa, so many things, all kinds of neural extensions, you won't be able to do precise controlling on particular things. And also, I think there is two different definitions on renderings. In Moser, that my group is doing renderings sometimes, well, all the time I could say, but these renderings that we're inputting physical parameters in Unreal Engine, Twinmotion, and Enscape to make them technically real, so that even the IES mapping were loaded exactly as the light source that we're choosing. Okay, so our rendering is not really rendering, it's just a I could say it's a prelude before the site is being really delivered. So it has different purpose. It's not really artistic impression only, but it's something that representing this is going to be your new office, your new workplace is going to be look exactly like this. The same lighting effects, the same shadows that casted on the wall, that's going to be the light beam angle. So everything is real. That's how my group is doing the rendering. That's why we're popular inside Moser. Everyone would love to engage us because it's physical. So to achieve that, you can, well, so none of the AI tools so far can do that. I could tell you because I tried them. We've been testing them for all and in quite in depth, to be frank.
Okay, what you mentioned is we're actually creating a digital twin, which will actually perform as what it should be before it's built, right? See, you put the lighting and the shadow and all that for the space.
Yes and no, because digital twins in Moser has another definition. Basically, it's a digital platform. It's a digital replication of the physical space that it enables, right? So that digital twin is more towards like our Julian Rimmer's team. He's in London. I guess he's flying to Vancouver anyway. So and he's integrated closely with us as well. So that team is taking care about making a replica of the physical space in advance, but has all the controls, like even you can access to that platform, then you just click here, literally the real lights goes off or is being tuned down, right? So that's the digital twin that we're doing. But yes, in generally, William, you're right. You can understand that as a physical copy of a virtual physical copy of these the space that we're designing. Yeah, correct.
Okay. All right, great. Yeah, we're almost time. I guess I open to the floor. If anyone have any question onto this, you can ask anything. And don't worry about it. Don't have to limit to just what we discuss. I think we're here to learn about technology and all that. So open up your minds.
Yeah, and I just want to occupy everyone's time for just 30 seconds. Our group is actively hiring in Singapore. So if you're interested in technology development, you're fascinated about like the things that I described about what we're doing, you're welcome. You can search my name or search Moser Associates on LinkedIn or whatever, and we have a career page. Please do do post us your CV as a portfolio. Okay, I'm really hiring. Thank you.
All right, okay, guys, you heard him. So yes, okay. In meantime, I also want to open up to from SIA's point of view, people who are well versed in SketchUp. I think we want to find a way whereby, because as we know, ConnectX is going to come up soon, and a lot of the so-called practices that are using SketchUp actually have expressed to me that what's going to happen to them, you know. Will they be obsolete? I don't think so. In fact, with what Jason has just explained, right, there should be a way out whereby if we have to put in some effort, right, perhaps we can do something to help so that you can actually use the SketchUp and become part of the ConnectX initiative as well. So anyone who have any who is good at SketchUp, I mean, you can come and see me. I'm William Lau from Council of SIA. And we can work out something as well. All right. So
all All right, if there is any users of SketchUp friends that if you are also interested in Ruby, and reach out to me.
Yeah. It's now.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, Wei is asking the core questions. What are some effective methods using Ruby script to automate the extraction and manipulation of the metadata from SketchUp model for improved interoperability with other BIM? Well, this answer I could say is very, very straightforward. For everyone using IFC format and loaded in the same schema, then you can communicate. The biggest problem between Revit and the rest of the world softwares, well, the BIM softwares, well, I couldn't say BIM softwares, but it's literally the softwares that compatible with BIM, IFC, is Revit, that family thing, is just a huge trouble because it's a you know, it's set the standardized families, then you need to customize it, right? And when exporting, something will be lost, but that's from Autodesk, it's not from me. So I'm not sure whether Autodesk has been, you know, monitoring that. So if everyone, regardless whatever software you're using, as long as everyone loaded in the same IFC schema, everyone is packaging their models in IFC format, then it's exchangeable. All right, that's the conclusion. Because
yeah, in fact, that's exactly what we're trying to do. That's why we come with the IFC SG. Hopefully, all the BIM vendors will be able to support the IFC SG. Therefore, when they export the BIM model to IFC, it should be in the IFC SG schema. And once that is done, then the interoperability issue should be able to resolve. I mean, that's the grand plan, so to speak.
Yeah, it's actually right. I mean, technically, it's definitely going to happen. It's definitely going to be very successful because the only limits for IFC is whatever fields, or I could say like attributes that live within this schema itself, right? It will be preserved as long as you save as an IFC format. But if you're customizing a lot of things, which is not inside the schema, definitely it would be kind of like, you know, like somehow it may be lost. But as SIA side, I believe that the IFC SG or Kone side, Kone X side, then it's just the required information necessary, right? So all this information, as long as within the schema, then it has a fields, right? It has attributes, it has empty values, right? So basically, it all can be exchanged. That's it. That's the conclusion.
Okay. I think we've reached our time. I'd like to just thank Jason for your very interesting talk. Like I say, this is a SIA-YAL Tech Talk. The more series to come, do look out. We will actually broadcast the next session to you, and hope to see you in the next session.
Sure.
With that, I'd like to thank everybody and also Jason. So good night.
Okay, good night. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.